That's perfect, Jane. You guys got a copy of the tentative agreement. I'm not gonna read the entire agreement. I'm gonna point out the highlights of it.
Wait a minute.
We didn't get a
We
copy.
did not get a copy of the tentative
We got
agreement.
nothing.
It's probably in your regular board packet then.
Okay.
Hang on.
I have.
Copies of the tentative agreement.
Then I will
Sure.
read through the whole thing,
Okay.
Please do.
so that an explanation is necessary.
I think he's got it. He's got it.
We can share for now. Okay. What this outlines, first off, is that we have come to a tentative agreement. That means that the Teachers Association and the school corporation employer have come to what we believe is a fair settlement. So if you can skip the first few, you'll identify the important aspects. As you know, we have a compensation model. We have something called the toggle differential. That is a 3%. That 3% is what the people who are at the top of the scale or at any of the caps, in other words, if you're at the top of the scale for a bachelor's degree or the top of the scale for a master's degree, that's the percentage of pay raise that they would receive this year. That's a 3%. Then there's the incremental toggle. That portion represents what used to be the increment in the old salary scale. It is also 3%. That 3% goes to everyone who is not at the top of the scale, except for new hires. Now, to clarify, that means the people who are not at the top of the scale get the 3% increment plus the 3% pay raise. So everybody from year 2 through year 19 or 20 who aren't at the top of the scale receive a 6% pay raise. Those at the top, well, the caps are only get a 3% pay raise. Okay, so I want to make sure there's very clear on what that looks like. The bottom of the scale is bumped to 42,000. The beginning teacher coming in, teachers that were hired this year that are at the bottom of the scale will be making 42,000. Of course, that will set the top at 84,391. Okay, we also have a annuity agreement. We've increased the annuity by 0.25%. We are now, will now be contributing 4.5% to the retirement annuity.
That's pretty good.
That's 4.5% of employee, oh, there's another copy here, sorry. For the employees going into the retirement account. Now, that's in addition to the 3% that's going into their Indiana State teachers' retirement. Insurances, we didn't have to change the plans. After a lengthy renewal process, we were able to end with a 4.3% increase in the cost of our health insurance. And by increasing our contributions by small amounts, $400 for those on the single and $700 for all the others, we were able to result in anywhere from $5 to $15 increase per pay. So most of them are $5, $7, $8. The $3,000 deductible plan has a $15 increase on the family plan. It obviously performs at a lesser level than the $5,000 plan. We've also added a 1% straight increase to the ECA schedule. So all the ECAs will have a 1% increase. And we've added 3 positions. And I want to explain these. The first of them says AM and PM bus route substitute. We have put into the teacher's contract a stipend for anybody who gets a CDL to drive a bus that's willing to drive a morning route or an afternoon route as a substitute driver. So if a teacher wants to get a license or a program assistant, they don't have to change jobs to go to the multi-purpose position. They can say, you know what, 2 days a week, I can drive the school bus after the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, based on the way their schedule works. And they will get a stipend, $38 one way, or for each one, $38 in the morning, $38 in the afternoon. We set that number slightly below the hourly rate of a bus driver. Obviously, I don't want them all to quit and become sub-drivers.
Yeah.
And the teachers worked with us on that. That was really nice to be able to add to the ECA schedule for simplicity of managing the people that go into those jobs. Because we have the multi-purpose and all the different categories, sometimes they're like, well, I'm going to be on overtime. I want this. And it's really difficult if they've got a half an hour overtime every day to calculate, keep track of and things, so this will simplify that process. We also added an ECA event supervisor. We are going to use that sparingly, but at some of the high schools particularly, between the athletic directors and the principals, they sometimes don't have enough help to do the coverages. So if a teacher is willing to hold the responsibility of, similar to that of the administrator, and say, you know what, for example, we have a football game going on at Tecumseh High School. We have a volleyball game going on, and they're happening at the same time. Or during the spring, we have baseball and softball, tennis, and they can't get enough coverage, and understand that between the administrators, sometimes it's 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. And if they want to, I'm gonna allocate a certain number, and then they will be able to pay somebody, stipend of $50, for taking on that supervisory capacity. So we've been able to add that position. And lastly, it wasn't an added position. The speech debate sponsor position was very, very lowly paid in comparison to some of the time and effort that they're putting into the position. So we determined that that one would go up to equal that of the robotics, which is the 2364. Finally, there is a sick leave bank committee that is going to be broken into a subcommittee so that they can review some of the nuances of what's happening in the sick leave bank, the use of the days, maybe developing a plan to pay back days after you've used them, or change the number of days you receive unpaid before you get into the sick leave bank. There's some issues that have been occurring that we've identified. We couldn't get that resolved for the contract, however, their committee is going to develop it, and the agreement is we will work with what the committee comes up with.
So that's not the actual sick leave bank committee?
No.
This is a subset?
They are
of
going
that.
to, they wanted more people on the committee than the sick leave bank committee.
Okay.
They wanted it to be a wider span of information and purpose and things like that. The other thing is something that is not bargainable is a supplemental payment. Effective July 1st of this past year, they legislated the ability to pay teachers without bargaining. There are certain instances, for example, if you want to create a gap between your new teacher hires and the people you currently have in your plan. It's as if they wrote this specifically for us, when I say it. There's a couple of reasons that you can pay supplemental pay to your teachers. That supplemental pay is not bargainable. It is determined, and we discuss it, but we can identify those teachers. I'll give you an example. If we had a physics teacher that was the only one we had, and they were going to take a job somewhere else, if we wanted to, this is an example, we could increase their salary by $2,000 if we wanted to. Our purpose, the reason we're going to be using it, is to offset some positions. When we hired in over the last 9 years, and you guys have heard me talk about this, the last 9 years, when you compare where those people would have been on the old scattergram versus where they are now, we had a couple of years of really small increment. And that affected the rate at which they were going to the top. We're going to utilize it to, over a 3-year period of time probably. We're going to do year 7, 8, 9 this year. The following year, we'll use 5, 6, and 7, because it's really 4, 5, 6, but there'll be 5, 6, and 7 the next year. And the next year, we'll hit the 3, 4, 5, which is really years 1, 2, and 3 right now. But what that means is those people that were hired 9 years ago are going to get a supplemental payment on top of their contract that moves them, spreads them a little bit more, and moves them a little closer to the top. Not a lot. And then we're going to do the same thing we're going to give them one amount, the 8 years one amount, the 7 years one amount. 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. The next year, our intent is to come back and hit the next 3, and the following year is to hit the bottom 3. And the reason being is because we can identify, we broke them apart, identified where they are, the gaps had shrunk in some areas between 4-year and 5-year, that they might be making $170 more than the person that's got 1 year less experience than them. And so we're gonna be able to spread that gap a little bit. And so I'm gonna create the list. When you guys receive the list of teachers that say, here's what their salaries are gonna be, I'll have a separate spreadsheet that identifies which ones received extra. It will already be calculated into their contract salary. even though it's not bargainable, we're gonna identify a sentence in the contract that says, we have utilized this supplemental payment to fix something that has occurred. And we haven't worded it yet, but we're gonna put that in the contract. But if we wanted to, if they said, we don't want this person to get it, obviously we could say, well, based on what we've evaluated, that person also needs to get it. It's not bargainable, it's discussable. Good thing is we agree on the list, so that's also gonna be coming in when you get your final list of teacher salaries. So we're trying to fix that gap. That sums it up. Questions?
What is the dollar amount of these supplementals approximately?
$500, $600, or $700.
And did you say when you talked about the different levels, was that years or that was schools? I don't understand.
Number of years ago, they got hired.
Okay,
The group that was hired 9 years ago would get 700, the group that was hired 8 years ago would get 600, the group that was hired 7 years ago will get 500.
okay, and one more thing on the $50 extra for, is that a night or is that, or you said something about who comes in and takes over those?
If they supervise an event, it's $50.
That's to supervise an event?
Yes.
Can they supervise two events, like a tennis?
Is that like a
football,
fill-in?
or current
They can't
soccer?
break it into, if it's one evening, it's $50.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, say, that's something the administrators would normally be doing, and they're just helping take
Yes.
that off the
It's
administrators?
particularly important for Tecumseh because there is no assistant principal, and so they've got one less person to divide it up among. Like I said, we're gonna use it sparingly, it's our intent, but it gives us the capability to help our administrators, who might be spending too many nights out.
And that doesn't have anything to do with the normal ECAs, the normal people who do the, like the teachers in charge of the volleyball team or whatever.
Oh, no,
They
no,
still
no,
have
no,
their
no,
separate.
they're coaches. This is a supervisor, in other words, they're the one that's gonna be walking around in the crowd, and if something unusual is happening, they're going to help remedy it.
Okay.
Just for clarity, we're talking about the 401A, is gonna be 4.5%. But the TRF, the Teachers Retirement Fund retirement, which is state mandated, is not, it's just mandated by state law, it's not part of this contract. It's affected by wages, but that's all.
Well, it is, it's part of this contract, but it's a part that we had spent by state statute.
Yeah.
The amount that we have to contribute for people hired after 1995 increased by 0.5%, so it's now 6%. But that's on the pension side.
Yeah.
On the annuity side, it's still 3%.
Okay.
Are you still planning on paying like the 3% total amount to all employees, or a percentage of to all employees to raise,
Yes, that is, even though that's not part, yes.
Yeah, because.
My intent would be that we would follow along the same lines. The number that we use for that difference, the 3%, would be what we'd be looking at for the non-certified administrators.
So this affects the 22-23 hires.
Yes.
So,
They're gonna go to 42,000. If they were
Okay.
hired at 41.3, they'll be making 42.
okay. And then, is there anybody that is working for us now besides the new hires that will not get this increase that are certified?
Let me think about it. Is gonna get no pay raise.
Yes.
There is a couple. But they would have been people who did not either work 120 paid days last year and have an evaluation, or they had an evaluation that was not effective or highly effective. Those would be the only ones.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that.
So nobody's gonna fall naturally into a class.
Okay.
Now, have we explained to the people that they have to work 120 days? How has that been communicated, or do you know?
I can't answer specifically how it's been, but as far as it's in their contract, well, it's not in their contract, it's in the tag policy.
He's coming up to answer that right now.
Will people know to look into that is what I'm asking, because I don't want
No,
anything to occur again.
I can
I
answer.
want to make sure it's communicated.
It is on the form. It is on the leave form.
Great,
So they
Awesome.
will see it if they go to the
So
leave
when
form to fill it
requesting
out.
leave,
yes, perfect, thank you.
I'm confused, there's 180 days in the school year, and they only have to work 120?
Well, you have some out of temporary
Leave.
and.
if you're
when they
requesting
take a
leave,
Maternity
Yeah.
leave,
You get all kinds of reasons.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay, sorry.
That's something-
Todd, I've got a question. I had a couple people reach out, and they were teachers, and they were talking about sick day, maternity leave type thing, kind of unfair, not working or with things like that. Is that what you're referring to, maybe, that with the sick leave bank review, maybe some things that the association has heard from their members, and they're going to talk about that?
Doug and I, and well, our office, our team has been talking about this for a while, but Doug and I in particular for a number of years, simply because the sick leave bank has been getting utilized more than ever.
Okay,
So what's happening is people are contributing a day, and what, 2.5 years later, having to contribute another day because completely vacating it.
okay,
Repeat users, you know, coming to the bank and using 120, and then 2 years later, they have another one that comes back. And
Okay.
so, it's great, the sick leave bank is designed to do that. But if you get the benefit of that, the idea is that maybe you ought to give back a little bit more than everybody else.
okay.
But
I'll-
that's not normally a maternity leave.
Yeah, this was a little kind of lumped in with that, so I'm gonna share the email I got, one email I got, and that way you can look at it, just make sure that,
So if I
that in your
take,
negotiations, it's being addressed.
so here's a question. If I take a maternity leave and it goes over a holiday period, okay? The way, our teachers sign a 182-day contract, right? And they can either pick to get that over the school year or the whole year. Correct? They're paying.
182 days?
Well, once you sign a teacher's contract, you get to choose, do I want 26 pays or do I want, everybody gets the same now? Okay. So my question is, if a teacher is, part of their maternity is, the school's closed for a snow day, okay? And this is my understanding, this is why I'm asking for clarification. That's, if that snow day's made up at the end, they're gonna have to teach that day at the snow day. Now, if it's one that they don't have to make up, the question is, are they getting paid, not getting paid for
Am
that
I
day?
understanding correctly, Doug? Because maternity leave is designed by, they have a number of paid days, but maternity leave starts the day the baby's born.
Okay.
So it's the 6 weeks following that.
Maternity leave is for 6 calendar weeks, not work weeks, not work days.
Days,
It's
6 calendar weeks.
Yeah,
So-
or 8 in the case of a cesarean section.
So just a question, if it's, and this is for my clarification, I'm a little past babies
They would
now.
just use one
But
less.
6 weeks, if, then you have 2 weeks at Christmas, do they get 4 and then 2 in the next?
No.
They get 6 weeks?
Calendar weeks, not work weeks.
Okay.
So
It
if, so
just
if
runs,
somebody,
it runs continuously,
somebody has a baby in the beginning of June,
they don't get, their maternity.
they're not gonna use any sick days, because their
Because they're not
maternity is gonna be
using
over the
sick.
summer.
They'll have used one
Right.
less day off.
But I can see where people, I'm not disagreeing with the policy, but I can see what they say. If I take 6 weeks during the fall, or I take 6 weeks to go over Christmas vacation, I'm
not
not,
the
it's
same.
not, you're getting the same pay.
It's
And
not
that's-
the intent. The intent, it's not the intent to just give everybody off 6 paid weeks of off.
No, but that's the clarification. That's what I'm trying to get for myself. So it's not a matter of you're getting 6 weeks of paid days, you're getting 6 weeks off. If it happens to fall over Christmas, you got 6 weeks off. And that's the way our system works.
My son was born June 14th, so those were unpaid, they were already time off that was already in the calendar.
Had time.
Yeah, you can't then come back when school starts. and say, I'm gonna take my-
That might be, that, I'll share with, that's exactly what, you know, just make sure that's,
I don't know.
make sure
I know.
they're clarifying it with their members is what I'm saying, you know?
And those are US Department of Workforce.
Yeah.
That's not a Work County thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to point out.
I think it's
too.
just, maybe,
Yes.
that's not necessarily
That's
conveyed or
probably-
educated.
They thought maybe they should be able to take the 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So that clarifies it for me, thank
I
you.
get those questions
I was gonna
frequently, and I'm able to refer to the specific law, and it usually clears it up for people.
Yeah.
The ones that ask me.
Maybe that should be something, because it's the communication. A lot of people, I think, don't understand these things. So I don't know how we could better communicate
Well,
that.
I don't think you're ever gonna have a button that you push and get it to complete.
But to be
It's just,
fair,
you know,
it
part of
is the
it.
law. But
Yeah.
as an accountant,
Right.
one person's getting paid for 6 weeks time off and the other one's 4, but we have nothing to do with that.
Right.
That's the issue, that we have not.
Provided they have enough sick days. then they'll
No
be
sick
paid.
days, that's
Yeah.
correct, yes.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Thank you, that helps me.
Thanks, sir. I hate to step on your toes.
Are there any other questions?
No, answers.
Mm-mm.
All special meeting.
I have one statement then. So on Thursday, 72 hours from now, we'll be moving to ratify. So at that meeting, the purpose is anybody else that wants to come in and comment, they can. So
Okay.
That's a public meeting, open for comment.
Yes.
it's a hearing.
After reading her email, is
We're
there any
going
way
to,
we could,
that's what I was just gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, you were thinking the
could
same
we do it
thing.
after our 7 o'clock meeting?
It's on Thursday.
It's on
On Thursday.
Oh, duh,
So, but what I was
Is that
going to
because of high
say
schools?
is, could we make that at 6 o'clock
6 o'clock.
or
Is that-
5:30, whatever works?
That's when she comes to high school.
I'm a,
Comes to high schools at 6 o'clock. So we'll just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You can't be here at 5:30 and vote on this and get to Tecumseh by 6 either, probably.
No.
All
We'd have
we're
to-
doing is coming
The
in.
earliest we could do it is 5 o'clock.
We're just coming in to vote.
That's it.
I might do it, I might do it verbal, I might do it online.
Yeah, it's a one-item agenda.
Yeah.
I
That's
doubt
pretty
if we'll
good,
have
yeah.
that public comment, so why couldn't we do it at 5:30 and we can be out of here by 22 and make it to Tecumseh?
it's 20 minutes. to
Quarter
Tecumseh.
after?
5:30, Brenda?
Yeah, I can be here at 5:25.
Because I'm not going to.
Make
be
it at
here.
5:15, I'll.
Yeah, make 5:15.
Early.
Because I was gonna ask you to run the meeting, I'm not going to be here.
Okay.
5:15, okay.
It's one
I got
item.
a statement for you.
Yeah,
5:15.
5:15.
Is that good for you, Brendan?
That would help, yeah.
I'll make sure you guys get to Tecumseh without rushing
I've
too
just been
crazy.
taking my lunches and working through them, so I can take long.
I can fit 4 people in my truck and I guarantee we'll get there on time. The other people I can't.
My wife knows the way.
5:15 Thursday. That's what is gonna be proposed tonight
Okay.
in the meeting.
Yes. Get your food, the food is ready, and we have in
Where's
about,
Jared?
we're gonna have a guy come on in about 6, 7
Do you want
minutes,
me
he'll
to-
wait for us and be ready to give us
No,
a tour.
that's, they were actually your copies.